Ready? Play.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are tuning in the world. This is your first ATP Weekly, hosted by myself, Vanch, as we get closer to the hardcourt swing. And this week's guest is Srihari, who's a very familiar guest on this channel. But Srihari, how are you today?
I'm good, Vanch. How are you?
Doing well. Week after Wimbledon, obviously. So
Yeah,
three
still trying to
events.
process what happened those couple of weeks, especially how it ended. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're nearing the hard court season. Just gotta get a few more clay court tournaments and one grass court tournament that just got over. Get the natural surfaces out of the system, I guess, before we transition back to the hard courts.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Hamburg, the draw looks pretty fun, and I mean, play is already underway as we speak. So, what do you think of that?
Yeah, so I mean, this is the time of the year where everyone is like, we don't understand why we have, all these post-European clay court, post-Wimbledon clay court tournaments in Europe. And I guess one of those this week was uh, Hamburg is next week, but this week we had Bastad in Sweden and Stad. So I guess we could start with Bastad because actually this player field was quite good in the sense we had Rublev, we had Rude, we had Musetti, and we had Cerundolo, and these were the top four seeds. They got to the semifinals, and they're all in the top 20. And I thought it was a good tournament for all four of them overall. But yeah, what stood out to you in terms of Bastad? Obviously, Rublev winning the title, getting through Zverev, and then Cerundolo, a really nice tight three-setter there, and then a really good performance in Hamburg, and I mean, really good performance in the final against Rude.
Yeah, I was surprised actually. I watched just parts of the first set. I saw that Rublev was up a break and then Rude drew level and then held for 5-4, saving a couple of break points, and I just stopped watching. So I thought, okay, maybe I thought all the way back to their match in Turin almost a couple of years ago. I think Rublev lost from set in a breakup, and also was a breakup in the third set.
Yeah.
I think that's where uh, you could see a swing in their matchup. I think Rublev was 4-0 up until that point. Of course, last year in Turin was kind of a blowout for Rublev.
Mhm.
So yeah, I thought, okay, maybe Rude. I think he's gotten the upper hand in this matchup, but then Rublev took that opening set, and usually would have expected Rublev to just capitulate from such a position, but he's done pretty well this year. A lot of times to just regroup when things are not going his way, just keep it collected. And even that match against Cerundolo, I mean, the first two sets, tie breaks that could have gone both ways really, and then he pulled it back together and then finished it off in the third set. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with Rublev, and I read that the second set looks like it was kind of an exhibition show from where he was finding the lines from every corner possible. So yeah, that's pretty impressive from Rublev, and I think deservingly he's number 4 now in the race, because he's also the only player outside the current top three. There's Alcaraz, namely Alcaraz, Djokovic, and Medvedev, who has won a big title on tour, and he has also done pretty well at the slams. So
Yeah.
it's pretty positive signs for Rublev, and I think the race for the number 4 seed at the US Open's heating up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was impressed with Rublev this week, but also this whole year. I mean, right from Monte Carlo where he won the title, because I just think he's doing two things better. One is his mental strength, like you correctly pointed out. Every time he's facing adversity in a big match, he gets broken. A lot of the times we would see him just beat himself up and just kind of lose his self belief and capitulate, like you said, really from there. But this year he's been just fighting hard. He's been realizing that there's a long way to go in some of these matches, and if he just keeps his head in it mentally, then he can give the chance for he can just remain really really solid. And he's got obviously a good weapon with the forehand, but also the backhand seems to be a lot more solid to me as well. He's just covering the ball with it a lot better. He won a lot of those cross court backhand to backhand exchanges with Rude, and it was actually Rude who was having to press on his forehand and trying to get the ball by Andre, because Andre was just so solid off that wing. And I
He
think that's
was.
such a big improvement for him, because He's obviously had one of the best forehands, but now the backhand he's comfortable going down the line with it and changing directions at
Yep.
will, and also just better depth and better defending too. I've seen an
Mhm.
improvement in his slice. Just in general, he's just thinking more clearly out there, and that comes to that's because of the mental strength. I think that's where Monte Carlo really helped him. Just
Yep.
get that first big title because he'd been in two Masters 1000 finals before, both in 2021, but never
Yeah.
gotten over that hump. And now that he managed to do so, I mean, even the two matches that he won this year against Runa,
Yep.
all from losing positions in the final set where you wouldn't have expected him to come through, and he came through both of them.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so
I want to
impressive.
date back for Rublev all the way to that match he lost to Tiafoe at the US Open, if you will, because
Yeah,
you kind of see a change from then. Like even those matches he won in Turin against Medvedev and Tsitsipas, down a set in both, and especially
yeah,
against Medvedev. Serve was set, got broken back. That tiebreaker really should have been his, but then after Medvedev, I don't want to say it, but like scammed the opening set, if you will. We thought he would just like sort of fade away and disappear. He had his chances, he didn't take them, and he's just gonna revel in that. But he did not. He still kept suffocating Medvedev. He knew what kind of play style was bothering him. He kept executing that to perfection. And I saw actually some glimpses of that when he played Zverev, that serve out wide where like Zverev could do nothing a lot of times, getting aced. He did that really well against Medvedev as well. And even against Tsitsipas, from a set down. So apart from, I want to say, or maybe I'm missing a few, the match he lost to Sonego at RG,
yeah,
I can't think of one match where like he
yeah.
should have
That's a
won and
good
he did.
good one because Ghosty is asking, why can't Rublev do this at Roland Garros? And I actually thought he would this year, but he lost that
Right.
surprising match to Sonego,
Yeah.
2 sets to love up, and
Yeah, yeah.
uh, that
That's the
was
only
really the
match I
only
could
one.
think of where like, oh, he shouldn't have lost it. But
Yeah,
every other match, like he's either done well or I mean, to win. There was also, I think, the match against, what was it? Uh it was Griekspoor, I think, in Doha, where he was about
oh
to
yeah,
lose and beat him.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, we've quite a few matches that we're seeing, and he's also taking it to the big guys rather than just being an easy matchup. We saw that against Novak at Wimbledon. He gave
yeah.
him a stern fight, like barring that second set. You just, um, even that third set towards the end, he gave Novak quite a bit of a scare. So yeah, he's taking it to the big guys, and it's not like when Rublev shows up, it's sort of free pass for any of these top guys anymore, which is good for us to see. Yet to play Alcaraz, I'd love to see that matchup. To be very honest,
I'd love to see it too. Yeah, they've never played each other. That's like the only matchup where we're kind of missing at
yeah,
the on the ATP tour at least. Yeah, and
yeah,
then for
because
Rude, I
Rublev
think
has the firepower to take it to him. Really, it's not like I mean, you can think about Medvedev, how Alcaraz is a horrible matchup for him, but then Rublev, yeah, he has the brute strength to keep up with Alcaraz in the rallies. Yeah, Alcaraz definitely the more creative player and whatnot, but still it would be really fun to watch. They played once for what it's worth in Abu Dhabi, but I don't put too
yeah,
much weight on that really because it was an exhibition and Alcaraz was just coming back from that injury that he suffered towards the end of the season.
right. So I guess let's talk a little bit about Rude, who got to the final, and obviously this is like kind of a home tournament for him, and he uh, he beat Musetti in the semis, which was a decently good win, and then comes up short in the final here. But really, the main takeaway for a lot of people uh, is still always this part of the year, this swing, and playing these tournaments after Wimbledon and racking up those titles and finals and stuff like that. I guess the next step is going to be to win one of these big titles, and obviously he's
Yeah.
come really close. And I mean, in terms of like he's played better in the last couple of big finals that he's been in with the U.S. Open and Roland Garros. Just lost to better players, really, in all five of the big finals that he's been in. But I think actually next week could be an important week for him just to rebound from this loss and
Yeah.
try to win his first 500 title in Hamburg.
Yeah. And we could get a rematch in the final.
Yeah,
With him and Rublev. But yeah, has he won a title beating a top 10? I don't think so, right?
No, not yet. Actually, this was the first time in a 250 that he beat
Mhm.
that he faced a top 10 player in the
Right.
final.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
actually, all of his top 10 wins have come in, his runs to the big semifinals, finals of all the other big
yeah, I
tournaments.
recall Berrettini in Rome 2020. Even Miami beat Zverev. Uh,
Yeah, and
RG
then
beat Rune.
this
So yeah,
year,
those were
Runa,
where his sort of biggest wins have come.
yeah.
2021 Tsitsipas. Yeah, I forgot about that. Of
Yeah, and then
course.
of course at the World Tour finals where he's made semifinals in
Yeah. Yeah.
2021 and
Sure.
final last
Yeah,
year.
semis and finals. So yeah, you don't just get there. But yeah, we would like to see a scenario. It is in a way similar to, I guess. I mean, Rublev, to his credit, actually, even when you're slowly climbing to the top, he had some of these big scalps,
He did,
um,
yeah.
and he could produce those upsets. I think Rude, he would like to, like you mentioned, get a big win at some point. I mean, Rublev, technically, I don't know if it's like a big win for him because he's ranked higher than Rublev, but it still means a lot to beat top opposition in some of your titles or your biggest runs. So and yeah, that's kind of the whole discourse around Casper Rules, that okay, yeah, he's made three slam finals and Masters final at the ATP finals and semis and whatnot, but uh yeah, it's just sometimes it's just been underwhelming or not convincing enough, where he's lost to players who, yeah, but we don't expect him to beat any of those players. But then that's the thing, right? We want to see a matchup where we can say, okay, what, he has a chance to win this this time around. Which, I mean, what better scenario than this? His favorite surface, 500, seems like a reasonable enough draw to put him as one of the favorites for the title. Even, I mean, yeah, goes without saying, he's a top seed. But
Yep.
yeah, the what that will mean for the US Open series, I don't know, because obviously there's going to be a change in surfaces. But yeah,
Yep.
I think definitely he has shown improvement, like each of the last three seasons. This season not done yet, but after a very, very bad start, he sort of pulled it back with some pretty good results, especially the RG final. So yeah, hopefully we'll see something better from him.
Yeah, I guess with that we've sort of already previewed Hamburg for
Hmm.
for this week, but the top seeds there are obviously Ruud number one seed, and then Rublev second seed, Musetti third seed. So very similar field to what we saw this week, and
Right.
fourth seed is Zverev, and I think the big one is Cerundolo and Rublev could play each other in the quarters
Oh,
this time, as opposed to the semis last week because Cerundolo is seeded fifth. So yeah, and then I think who is the sixth seed? Sixth seed is Echeverry, but he already lost today to Laszlo Gera.
yeah, I saw that.
Uh,
Um, but yeah,
but yeah,
we're talking about Rude, and I was surprised he beat Musetti, actually, because I think Musetti beat him in Paris
yeah, and indoors
last
in
year.
the Paris Masters.
Yeah, so it was a good result, I think. But
Yeah, for sure. Someone is
um,
asking about Musetti. Yeah, Musetti is very good on these type of conditions on
yeah,
any kind of a clay court, really, except
hmm,
maybe altitude,
yeah,
where it just doesn't help his serve as much. But
hmm,
he was very inconsistent actually in the first 3 4 months of the year, and then I think he turned it around from Monte Carlo,
yeah,
where obviously he had the big win over Djokovic, and then he followed it up the next week by making semifinals of Barcelona, and then
hmm,
had better results, kind of Rome and Roland Garros, where he just ran into a buzzsaw in Alcaraz in the fourth round. But
yeah,
of course, last year he also won Hamburg, so maybe this is actually a big tournament for him this year because he's defending those 500 points in Hamburg, and
yep,
uh, yeah, I would say did well to get to the third round of Wimbledon. Hadn't done that before. Ran
yep,
into Hurkacz, who was serving like out of his mind in some
yep.
points in that match. But yeah, as you can see right here, this tweet from Jose. There's
Hmm.
also Davidovich
Yeah,
Fokina is
Rude
playing
and
that
Bias.
tournament. Fees.
Yeah, they did play in Estoril, I think, and Rude beat him.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I just don't remember where they played. It was Astral. I mean, if it was Astral, then Root would have beaten him because he won that title. Speaking of some late bloomers that we're seeing on the rise this decade, like Pedro Cachin, or is he
yeah. Let's
27
talk
or
about him.
28? Won his first title on tour.
Yeah, Cachin has been playing really really well since last year in March. He's just been continuously rising in the rankings, and at most of the clay court tournaments, especially the ones on altitude, I've
Yeah,
noticed he's been really thriving on those. It's his forehand
yeah.
is
I
one of
made
the
the
bigger
fourth
shots,
round, I think,
and
in Madrid. I lost to Struff.
yeah, and he took out Cerundolo and Tiafo on the way there.
Oh yeah,
So that
yeah.
was a
Then
good
those are
result. And
pretty
actually,
good scores.
before that in Madrid, he also made the final of a challenger, and he lost to Shevchenko in the final. So
Mm,
that was a big run. He beat some good players there, and I think yeah, this week against Ramos Vinolas. Ramos Vinolas has won this tournament. I think in 2019 he won this thing, and then last year he got to the semis and just ran into road and lost that one. But
mm,
here he was down a set, and then he did really well to kind of turn the match around. That strong backhand into the Ramos Vinolas forehand. He just had a lot more firepower, I think, in the last two sets and served much better. And that's where the altitude conditions really, really, I think, help him and the higher bounce. And I think he's just gaining confidence. He was 90. His
mhm.
ranking was 90 before the start of this week. Now he's in the top 50. So that's breaking new ground right there.
Yeah,
And yeah, he is more of a late bloomer. You're right, because he's 28 now. And
yeah. I
you know
saw
he's
Eubanks, Karatsev, now Kachin. You seeing
yeah,
kind of a trend here.
yeah,
Although
like
we've known
1995.
Eubanks for a while, to be frank, and Karatsev and Kachin. I mean, for those who don't really follow the challengers, and myself included, not everyone is Damien, right? To like have a close watch in the Challenger Tour week in week out. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
He,
actually
he
pretty
beat
nice
some
to
good
see
names
him break
actually here
through.
to get to the final. I mean, like Ghosty is pointing out, Fonini, Sonego, Kecmanovic, even Varias, who made the second week at Roland Garros before he lost to Novak.
Right.
Uh,
And yeah, speaking of this week, Newport, the new kid, Mickelson, how do you
yeah,
pronounce him?
Alex Mickelson.
Mickelson.
He's the biggest story right now, I would say, because last week when while Wimbledon was happening, he also won the Chicago Challenger and he took out Kei Nishikori actually along the way
Oh
there.
yeah, I remember that.
So that was a really big result for him, and he was I think ranked 600 at the start of the year, and now he's inside the top 140. And
Oh, that's good.
he's 6'4". He has a really big game. He has a pretty big serve. I like his backhand. Backhand, he says, is his favorite shot, and
Hmm.
he drives the ball through it really nicely. And he likes to come forward to the net, which I always like to see. He has just a more well-rounded game. I think like we're seeing from more of the American men in this
Yeah,
generation,
yeah,
right from the Tiafoe Fritz generation. So I think yeah, he's just another young player who actually committed to University of Georgia,
oh, he did.
you know,
Okay.
this year, and I think he's going to reevaluate that decision after this because now he's basically at a level where he can qualify for slams
Yeah.
based on his ranking. And yeah, he ended up getting all the way to the final. He beat some really good names in Newport. Obviously he took out Mackie McDonald, which I think was the biggest
Yeah,
one
he's
in
no too.
yeah in the quarters, and he beat him very handily. And then he beat Isner in a tiebreak and 6-4 in the second set, and then just ran into a really creative player in Mannarino, obviously, who
Hmm.
yeah, way more experienced on this surface and basically makes a living on grass.
Yeah, exactly. Mannarino's won all of his titles since 2019, like after he turned 30,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, talk about a
fascinating.
late
And then,
bloomer there. Nine
yeah,
of
like
his
his
13
game
finals are
style, you
gone.
wouldn't, I don't know, it's just a very, not to say unorthodox, yeah, in a way unorthodox, but you know, it wouldn't, I don't know if it would make much sense to say, oh, he's sort of aged, because it is that kind of game style where he sort of moves the player around, and he has really good hands, good racket skills. Uh, we let's not forget he almost took out Federer in Wimbledon a
Yeah,
couple of years ago. Unfortunately, he just slipped, and I think it was at the beginning of the fifth set or towards the end of the for I think beginning of the fifth set where he
yeah,
slipped and retired on his birthday, which is really unfortunate. And we saw that he beat Medvedev this year at Hertogenbosch before losing to him in Wimbledon.
yeah,
So yeah, he is not a player anyone wants to play really, especially that early on in the tournament. Uh, didn't he also make the final in Mallorca? I think he lost to Eubanks there, right?
yeah. He did. So that's his second. Two out of the last three tournaments he's made the final. Yeah,
Yeah. So there you go. He's having some pretty good results. Um, he can also play on the hard courts. So
yeah. He
I'm
won
not sure where
Winston.
his
He
ranking is
won
at the
Winston
moment.
Salem
Probably
last year.
What was that?
He won Winston Salem last year, the week before
Yeah,
the
yeah.
US. So
I
that's his other
recall.
title. Yeah, he
Yeah.
has
So,
once.
and yeah, those are, I guess, points he'll have to defend before the US Open. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, things looking pretty good for him. And not sure what his ranking is right now. Um,
27. So he's,
things that-
yeah, back inside the
right.
top 10.
So he's in a way, I guess, in danger of slipping, losing his seeding spot. But you don't
Yeah,
want to be facing him early on as well in the slam.
yeah. The good thing for
Nobody
him
does.
is that his Winston Salem title is the week before the US Open. So by then the seeds will already be out. So
Ah,
he won't
yeah.
be losing
Right,
those
right.
points, but he can certainly gain a lot, I think. And like if he wins a couple of matches in those other tournaments like Washington
Mm.
and the Masters.
Yeah, I recall Cincinnati 2018 took a set off Djokovic, but then to be honest,
Yeah.
Djokovic was atrocious that whole tournament. Um,
Yes.
you just wonder how that was the moment he won the the Golden Masters. But
Yeah. And
speaking
then
of
I'm just
which,
curious
is
to see
he?
how Mickelson kind of takes his ATP Tour debut and like how fast the ranks he can, like how high he can actually go because his first ATP event was in Mallorca and he lost to Eubanks there. And that loss aged really well because lost 7-5 in the third. And then uh, because of that, he just gained so much confidence and he won the Chicago Challenger last week. He beat
Yeah,
yeah, beating Nishikori along the way. And then this week he beats Cressy, he beats Duckworth, he beats McDonald, he beats Isner. So those are like, all really good wins on grass. And then
yeah,
now he's going to play in Atlanta and he faces Cressy again in the first round. And he played Cressy
yeah,
already in Newport.
yeah.
So interested to see how that goes for him and whether or not he actually goes to college, which I think he likely won't.
Hmm.
As John is sharing some of the feeds from Blair Henley's, because Blair Henley was actually on site in Newport and she was doing all the interviews and
Hmm. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, we see a lot of Americans break out when they're pretty young. We see Shelton now. We've
yeah,
had Tiafo and Fritz around for a long time. Fritz, I think his breakthrough was in Memphis in 2016. I think he lost to Nishikori in the final. So he's been
yeah,
around since then. Took a set off Federer when they played in Stuttgart, and has been on the rise since and established now over the last couple of years. Um, Tiafo as well. You know, 20. I remember 2016 losing to Isner from two sets up at the U.S. Open, and
yes,
it took a while for him to stabilize himself as well because he had a losing record by a fine margin at one point, and he was losing, or most of his matches he was losing, or I should say,
yeah,
almost every match that went to a decider, he was gonna lose or he was losing. So yeah, since then he has steadied the ship quite a bit. He has a win rate of just about 50% now. He's in the top 10. Shelton, Jack Sock as well. I remember him, showing up as a teenager at the 2011 U.S. Open. He played Andy Roddick. Uh, and then yeah, Isner as well, not as young, but we first knew of him when he played Federer as well.
yeah. Yeah, I think him and Shelton. Shelton is 2 years older, but it'll be interesting to see what Shelton also does in terms of because since Australia, his results have stabilized to say quite a bit, and he's wait, actually I think we've lost Srihari, so let's see where we can get him back. He's frozen right now. Yes, a lot of success from college tennis lately. I think there's like 14 or 15 players who are in the top 100, and they all had college tennis experience. So it's certainly quite valuable. Um, but obviously, Mickelson has a big decision to make because he's very close to basically playing the slams and all the big events. And his game seems polished enough where he can just compete regularly on the tour.
Hi, you see me?
Yes,
Yeah,
okay, Srihari is
yeah,
back. Yeah, I was just talking
right.
about the American college system and how that's been a good like stepping stone to
Yeah, I
success
heard
on.
what you were talking about, Shelton. And yeah, well, we I since the AO, I remember that match against Team and another match against Rude. Frankly, nothing more after. And also, I mean, I should say the match against Fritz at Indian Wells. I think it was upper set. Um,
Yeah. So Lina is asking me about the Mickelson's game. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fairly solid. I like how he comes to the net and loves to finish points up there. He's got a really good backhand that he can just drive through the court, and yeah, he doesn't have the highest net clearance. He hits pretty flat actually, especially on the forehand. Sometimes when he times it, he does he doesn't clear the net by a big margin. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit of the Opelka forehand
Hmm.
in the sense like
Yeah,
it's very
really flat and barely any spin on it.
yeah, and that's why he's having a lot of success right now on grass. But I wonder if like yeah, I mean if I wonder if he might actually end up being a little underpowered from the ground if he plays on slower courts. That's still yet to be seen. But actually, I like how he moves. He's 6'4" and he's probably he might even grow an inch or two because he's still so young. But
Yeah,
uh, but I think that's kind of where the game is going. Good movers, big servers. That's kind
yeah,
of been the
yeah.
theme
I
of
mean,
5 years.
I guess with this may be the last of the crop of players we see who are flat hitters, maybe a bit more creative, play
Yeah.
unconventional.
I
Because
should say
everyone
he does
else,
have a good mind. When I heard him speak a little bit after these interviews, he does have a good sense of like processing how matches are going and
hmm,
adjusting his tactics midway through. And he did that quite well at certain points against Cressy. He changed his return position quite a bit. He started getting tipping the ball a lot lower to Cressy's feet, so he made it harder for him to serve and volley. He was just
hmm,
anticipating plays a lot better and managed to get two breaks
yeah,
to win the second and third set. But yeah, I think it's pretty good signs at least for now. Obviously, the rule book is probably going to be out on him in the next few weeks, and he might just sort of level off at some point in the rankings. But we'll see where that leveling off is and how far that happens. But like right now, he's kind of just very new on the scene, and this was his second tour event, and he made the final of one, and he lost to the eventual champion in
yeah.
both
That's
cases.
true.
So certainly, yeah, grass seems to be a very good surface for him, and I would imagine hard courts would be too. So it's kind of a wait and see. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I
anything
mean, a
else, Blake?
fast hardcore cannot really count him out fully. Uh,
Yeah,
Kind of reminds me, I mean, when you're talking about young Americans, what happened to Emilio Nava since that match he played against Andy?
yeah, he's
Like,
been kind of stuck on challengers right now, and
uh,
he played a lot of clay court challengers, and he had a good win against Isner in Miami, and taking him out in the first round. Then he lost to Fritz, and since then he's just been. I mean, he did manage to win one challenger in Spain, but it
yeah.
just didn't propel him that high up in the rankings. So I think right now, actually, where is he at in the rankings right now? I think he's around 200.
Oh,
Um, yeah, he's unfortunately been stuck there for some time, but I feel like his game is good enough that he can break the top 100 in the next
mhm.
year or two. And then I actually I don't know how much further beyond that he can go at the minute because he is still a little bit limited off the ground.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's at 177 right now, so uh,
Oh,
yeah, he
wonder
needs to get
if, I
himself.
mean, I guess the only way, are the wild cards out yet for US Open? Or,
Yeah, and he did manage to win a challenger in Italy recently in
mm,
Modena. Uh, but
oh, okay,
but I think yeah, he was by far the best player in that field, and
right.
that was on clay. So
What is his
yeah,
best surface?
I would say I would say at the ATP level it's been hardcourt, and at the challenger level it's been clay because I think
Okay.
his he grew up a lot in Spain and trained there at the Sanchez Academy, and
Hmm.
he's yeah he because of how heavy he can hit sometimes on his forehand. I think it
Yeah,
would be
that's what we
clay.
heard
Just
mostly. Living in the UAE, you hear that. So,
yeah. So yeah, but I actually think yeah because he can slide on both surfaces and he has such good movement, he can
hmm,
translate it to both. It's just yeah, he's just not getting that big. He's losing a lot of tight matches right now, but
hmm.
if he can get into that 120, 110 range, then I think yeah, he might not be in challengers for a long time.
Yeah, what I remember last year was, I think it was after Murray broke in the second set, he just disappeared from the match. I think he won just
Yeah,
one game. since. This is kind of sad, but he was pretty fun to watch for as long as we watched him for.
Yeah, like for instance, this year he did have some good wins in the qualifying at RG. He took out Liam Brody. He took out another Frenchman in the top 160, Brian Q. And then
Mm.
he lost in the first round to Carballes Bayana.
Not a bad loss, but
Yeah, so I think like that was his first time qualifying in a major outside of New York, where he's basically gotten wild cards.
oh, here you go.
Yes, the
Such a
famous Scott.
Scott Barkley, the most Scott Barkley tweet you would ever see.
Yes,
Uh,
I'm just
X,
here to
well,
remind you that Andy Murray is the greatest. Yes.
yeah, something along the lines of let the fact that Twitter not dying not distract you from the fact that Andy Murray is the greatest to have ever picked up
Oh,
a racket. Something
yeah.
along that way. But yeah, I guess well, we covered the three tournaments. There were three. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's never usually more than three. Um,
Yeah. I mean, then this week we have Atlanta, and we have Umag, and we have Hamburg.
yeah, so it's
Atlanta, I
always
guess, is
strange
going to
when you
be
have like a 500 and 250 at the same time.
yeah. We have that again. I think the week after that because we have Washington, and then we have Los Cabos, and then we have Kitzbühel.
Oh yeah, I think that's a first because oh, is it? Because last year I remember Washington being after Los Cabos.
Yeah. No, I think it was the same week.
It
So I remember
was.
Kyrgios won Washington, and that same
Yeah,
week it was
I'm surprised Medvedev didn't play Washington instead of Los Cabos. I guess he just likes Mexico. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
right,
Last year he wanted to go somewhere different. I think
hmm
he
that's
likes to
true.
spread his wealth of titles,
Yeah, yeah, like the
different
octopuses. I
locations.
mean, win Washington. That's I guess the beginning of. At this rate, is he gonna end up? Is he gonna wind up with every title above 500 level? Well, is he? Is the question. There
Yeah.
is somebody who is literally not gonna allow that to happen. Certain
Yes.
Carlos Alcaraz. So
Right.
uh, that's insane. I mean, just hope either he's out early or he doesn't play that particular tournament and goes somewhere else in the calendar. But yeah, I
Right.
mean, this
Yeah. At
is
the moment,
also
that's
the
just a
first
bad
year
matchup.
with his
But if he,
Beijing not in the same week as Tokyo.
oh yeah. Wait. Yeah. I wonder. Yeah. I think Alcaraz is going to play Beijing and Basel as well. So I think.
Yeah, Beijing, Basel, Washington.
Right.
If you want to count Montreal, AO Indian Wells.
Yeah.
If there's
I
another
guess.
one that I'm
And
missing,
maybe
I don't.
Acapulco too. Right.
Acapulco, yeah, yeah. Of course, there's
Yeah.
Acapulco.
Wow. But that's still very less. That's still very few tournaments. That's crazy.
Yeah, it
He's
is.
really won
It's
every
kind of
hard court
crazy.
event there is.
So yeah, what to take of Medvedev's season? Yeah, well, best part of the season for him coming up, or the fact that he's won all of the big titles from here to the end of the season and he doesn't repeat titles.
At some
Um,
point, he has to defend one, right? If this
some
can
point,
continue
yeah,
like that.
at some point. I mean, it
Yeah.
took. I remember the first one Djokovic defended was Dubai 2010. It's
It
quite
would
a
be kind of
long.
cool if the big three of 2023 on the ATP side, each won one big title, including the U.S. Open. Like,
Yeah,
let's say, I don't
I
know,
guess yeah.
like
In each one a slam,
yeah, that
right?
would
Yeah,
be kind of
each
cool.
of them have won big titles on both surfaces. So, or I
Yeah.
should say, one has won on three surfaces, and the other have won on two
Do you think
surfaces.
Medvedev has a chance versus Alcaraz on hard courts? I don't, unless he fixes the return, unless he
Yeah,
figures out what to do on the return. To be honest,
yeah, and it's not
because
just
the
changing
same
the
matchup
return
twice.
position during the match. It's something that you need to practice, put in the hours. Um,
Yeah, and for instance, we saw it work against Eubanks when he moved up in the fourth set tiebreak and in the fifth.
yeah,
But at that point, I think Eubanks was also quite gassed and
he was,
it
and
just
also I think the inexperience helped Medvedev a lot, and or I want to
yeah,
say the Gulf inexperience helped him a
yeah.
lot there. Alcaraz, well,
Versus
no,
Alcaraz,
he's just
yeah,
a
versus
different
Alcaraz,
planet.
he just serves really hard into the body every time Medvedev tries to move up and take the
Yeah, he
return.
does.
Early.
So
He
like
just
he needs to. Which I mean, I hope he does, because at this point, like, that is the only matchup where we can see as a huge obstacle. We didn't even see Djokovic like that, because you would expect, okay, yeah, he can beat Djokovic, and he's done that.
Yeah,
But like, this is like the first time I think for Medvedev, and maybe aside from Nadal, like, it's a huge obstacle. I mean, even Nadal, he's come close to beating him on few occasions, to be honest,
right.
and he's beaten him once. So
Hmm.
yeah, well, probably, but yeah, I just hope he does something about it. I mean, it would be great to see like a sort of three-way battle with each of them beating the other in this season. If
Yeah,
Daniel beats Carlos, that is because the other equations have happened. Um,
yeah, for sure. And then we're at an interesting time where it's like, yeah, many people can be considered number in that fourth spot because
yeah,
you have Sinner, you have maybe Runa if he gets there. You also have Rublev who's up to his ceiling in the last 1 year, and then you know Tsitsipas, we'll see if he's able to find some form again on the hard courts. But
yeah, we have Sinner. Am I frozen again, or?
no, you're good.
Oh, okay, because there, yeah, I just went black for a second. Yeah, Sinner, Rublev, Steph, and Holger. I think amongst the four, to be very honest, I would pick either Rublev or Runa to take it. Um, More and on the same level of like bankable, and on the same level of, yeah, you can pick. Well, Rublev is a bit more stable at this moment, but if you were to match up against a pretty big player, you'd obviously pick Runa over Rublev, just because he has such an
Yeah.
amazing record against top five opposition. And I want to see Runa and Alcaraz again. To be honest, that match was so
Yes.
underwhelming at Wimbledon.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of disappointing.
It was, and yeah, Holger again. That's where I would put him a tier beneath Alcaraz, ahead of Runa. I think. Sorry, ahead of Sinner. I think Runa is at the moment ahead of Sinner. Sinner has a Grand Slam final, yes, but I think I would pick Runa otherwise. To be honest, um, record against top five, top 10, big title.
Yeah,
So
he's like one of those. Right, he reminds me a lot of. He's like one of those. The difference between him and Sinner right now, if we just take aside like the technical stuff and like what
mhm.
they're good and bad on the court, it's like Runa has this will to win at all costs. He's just so hungry. Where like I could see him winning matches like 7-6, 1-6, 7-6, 1-6, because
Yeah,
he's just so desperate, and he squeezes out these wins that you think are just unlikely because yeah, but he's just so desperate to get it, and he has that self belief, and I think that's where he separates himself
yeah.
from
Yeah, I do think
from
Rublev
Sinner
is
right
more
now. And then
stable at this moment, because Rune definitely hot and cold for most part.
yes,
Rublev
mhm,
does have consistent results, and like more smooth matches, if that makes sense, than Rune. I mean, Rune, you see him going the distance, or like there's some spice or the other in almost every single match that he's playing, it seems like.
yeah, he's
Um,
just got to get more efficient and a bit more
yeah,
just
efficient.
yeah, especially
Yeah,
in the early rounds, just take
yeah,
care of business more comfortably. And I still
yeah.
think the forehand can get a little bit better. Like when he was playing on indoors last year in
Mhm.
Paris and those other tournaments, he was just hitting the ball really really hard and big on the forehand. Sometimes he
Yeah,
gets very passive and he tries to. He has really good defense and good hands when he's defending, but he sometimes he's overly reliant on that too
yeah.
much.
Yeah, and
Uh,
his shots are a bit heavier than, definitely heavier than Sinner's. Like Sinner,
yeah,
it's a very flat in
I really like his
comparison.
backhand. His backhand
Yeah,
is very good.
yeah, it
It's
is.
one of the best for sure.
Yep.
And the serve has gotten way better, so there's obviously a lot to like.
Yeah. I don't even know if we can say, well, his serve is better than Alcaraz, because Alcaraz may not have perfected the serve yet, but it's
Yeah,
working.
probably not now because I think Alcaraz has improved that uh, a lot.
It
His
Yeah,
serve
it's
was amazing
seemingly
in
not changed, but
Wimbledon.
it's working. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Cashin has a dog. Yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that. Yes. Oh yeah. Thing on the screen.
mhm.
If there's a particular style of play that's more conducive to being bageled, mm, yeah, it's pretty rare for a serve bot to get bageled just because of probability.
Yeah, I mean, if for a serve bot or someone who serves well to get bagel, they just one, they need to not be serving well at all, and two, like
Yeah,
sort of, I mean, they should be some to some extent some kind of casino tennis from the other end of the court, because like when you're getting everything in and where everything's going well for you on the return, then yeah, and
yeah.
obviously like they're serving well enough. Rublev has a good serve, um,
We obviously
and
see a lot of bagels when you see someone, get pushed to the brink and lose a really tight 7-6 in 1 hour and 20 minutes. Then there's little bit of a letdown and drop in level and focus, and then all of
yeah,
a
whether
sudden
or
your
not
three
you
love
win the
becomes
set,
four
that's
love.
kind of gonna happen because Djokovic won the second set in Belgrade. Just didn't
Yeah,
have anything after that because he I don't know, he didn't have it in him to have like do a fourth consecutive comeback from a set down.
right. But yeah, probably Rude needs to move on from getting bageled now because he obviously got bageled in the fifth against Liam Brody, and then now he got bageled here.
I
So
didn't think of that.
yeah,
Yeah, he did get bailed twice. So um yeah, wouldn't matter much. I don't think so. He hates grass. He's
yeah,
won Bastard. So there.
yeah, for
Has he
sure.
won Bastard? I think
Yeah,
he
he did
has.
in 2021.
Yeah, when Bastard and Gustard were in separate weeks.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would love to see this Rude Rublev match again in the final of Hamburg and see if anything changes.
Yeah, if
Like,
this year's anything to go by what we saw Nori and Alcaraz, like
yeah,
Nori
maybe.
got cooked in Buenos Aires and
Yeah.
um, won in Rio.
But
So
it is nice when you have a good field because right away you have another top 10 matchup, and that's what we want to see because there's still a lot of matches like we just haven't seen them play that often, and so the
yep,
more you can get it, yeah, the better. Like last year, we saw Sinner versus Alcaraz right away in the UMAG final, right after they played at Wimbledon. So that's always good. I think it gets more eyes on the smaller events too.
yep.
Yeah.
And John has a comment about Steph here. Steph never reached.
Mm,
Yeah, well, actually, I've been agreeing with John Tsitsipas for a while, even before the AO. I would say all the way back to Turin. I remember John and Wunsch had this sort of I don't want to say debate, but like sort of contrarian views on Tsitsipas because at that time he was in contention for the number one ranking, year-end number one, which felt so strange considering the kind of 2022 he had overall. Yes, he won Monte Carlo. Yes, he made the semis at AO, but
yeah.
other than that, you can't like. Yeah, I mean he did well enough at the Masters, like quarters, semis,
Yeah,
final
but
in.
what I would say is that this year it's like a little flipped where he's doing better in the slams but worse in the other tournaments.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
last year
He's
he
doing,
was,
yeah, well,
yeah,
second week in all slams so far. But
but
I mean, again, still he did well in some. Like Romy made the
yeah, I would
semis.
say considering the expectations we had though, the grass courts, the Wimbledon was actually good because
He
to
was
beat
good.
Team and Murray and then
Yeah,
he should
because
have
when he
he
lost
really should have
Mallorca,
won
it
the
was
Eubanks.
concerning because,
Yeah,
well, there was no other top 10 player. You lose in the
yeah.
opening round.
I still
Half run,
think
you can't.
if he somehow got to the semifinals, I still think Alcaraz would have just beaten him very easily. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, yeah,
Yeah, that's
it would have
true.
been cool to see him and Medvedev play each other in the. Uh,
Yeah, the
it's
only
just really funny how
surface and the
matchups
only
work
slam they've not played at.
because now you could look back and you could say, man, what if Eubanks had played Alcaraz? It
Yeah,
would have certainly been maybe a little bit of a tighter match just based on
more competitive.
yeah,
It may pain me, but I have no problem admitting that.
yeah.
But yeah, honestly,
But yeah, I
mm,
think we got through all the big events in 30 minutes, and then now we got to answer a lot of the comments. So I think that's really good. Yeah, thanks, Jake. I think it's the haircut. But but yeah, of course, this week we also had UTS and we had Hopman Cup.
what is the
Unfortunately,
point of that tournament,
I
man?
really did not care to invest that much in those events. I did see that Alcaraz was winning his matches against Goffin and
Like
someone else. I didn't
UTS
remember.
sort of seems like, I don't know, top trumps or Uno of tennis for me. Just like the whole
Yeah,
convention. Uh, just feels odd.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure it was entertaining if you were in the crowd watching and you got to see a lot of cool trick shots and all that. But just I usually prefer not to mess with the tennis scoring system. That's what I would
yeah,
say.
I know. Yeah,
But
exactly. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So
but anyways, yeah, I think it's good for just an exhibition, but an exhibition only.
great for
So
outreach. I mean, at least that way people get to know of these players.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And it was cool that it was in LA because yeah, I mean that's we don't have any actual tennis event there anymore. But we used to have an ATP event. Now we don't there.
Yeah,
So that's bringing it to a different part
yeah.
of the world.
John
But
is something.
anyways,
Wait, I'm trying to
thanks
see.
as always for coming on, Tree Hurry. This was quite good. A lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise.
Uh,
It's always a pleasure talking to you. Not done too many shows like this for talking tennis, but yeah, I look forward to doing more. And yeah,
yeah,
see
for
you
sure.
soon.
And we'll be back with more. And be sure to tune in to Nick's WTA Weekly this week as well. And yeah, just keep your notifications on for anything else that's on the
Yeah, you're
channel.
gonna hear John say that. If you like this
Yeah,
video, make
yeah.
sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification button. Yeah, he's gonna do that. I don't know
Awesome. Yeah. So now we have Srihari who can also impersonate
what.
it. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I
pretty
can
sure this is
never
going to be
emulate John there. Sorry. But
a running joke. But yeah, if you're ready, John,
okay.
that's it. We've
Yep.
wrapped it all up.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things